Hello and welcome to Beyond the Continent. I am Adebola Adeduba and here are stories making the rounds. Let's begin with the 2024 Eid al-Adha celebration where Muslim pilgrims performed the last major ritual of the Hajj, the stoning of the devil in western Saudi Arabia in celebration of Eid al-Adha. As one of the world's largest annual religious gatherings wind down, authorities from multiple countries said at least 22 people had died, many of them from extreme heat, highlighting the acute physical toll of the annual rituals which in recent years have fallen during the oven-like Saudi summer. Beginning at dawn, the 1.8 million Muslims undertaking the pilgrimage this year threw 7 stones at each of 3 concrete walls symbolizing the devil in the Mina Valley, located outside Islam's holiest city of Mecca. The ritual commemorates Ibrahim's stoning of the devil at the 3 spots where it is said Satan tried to dissuade him from obeying God's order to sacrifice his son. Away from that, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has dissolved a 6-member war cabinet. This widely expected decision follows the departure of centuries opposition leader Benny Gantz and his ally Gadi Eisenkot. Israeli media report that a smaller forum will now decide sensitive issues about the war with Hamas in Gaza. Since Gantz quit 8 days ago over what he said was the lack of strategy for the war, there have been calls from far-right ministers to take his place. By dissolving the war cabinet, Netanyahu avoids a tricky situation with coalition partners and international allies. A spokesman for the Israeli Defense Force said that as far as it was concerned, it would not affect the chain of command.
The war cabinet was a prerequisite of creating this national unity government. It was a prerequisite put in by member of Knesset Benny Gantz. With Mr. Gantz leaving the government, there is no longer a need for the war cabinet, and its duties will be taken over as mandated by the State of Israel by the Security Cabinet, together with the full cabinet.
In Europe, world leaders are backing Ukraine's independence and territorial integrity and the need for eventual talks with Russia on ending the war. More than 2 years after Russia invaded, leaders and top officials from more than 90 states spent the weekend at a Swiss mountainside resort for a 2-day summit dedicated to resolving the largest European conflict since World War II. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky hailed the diplomatic success of the event, which took place without Russia, and said the path was open for a second peace summit with a view to ending the war with just and lasting settlement. But he told a closing press conference that Russia and their leadership are not ready for a just peace.
Who really wants the war to end? I thank all the participants of the first peace summit for taking the first steps towards peace together. We are responding to Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, not only with a full-scale defense of human life, but also with full-scale diplomacy. It's important that all participants of the summit supported Ukraine's territorial integrity, because will be no lasting peace without territorial integrity, nuclear safety, food security, and the release of prisoners and deportees, including thousands of children abducted by Russia.
And joining me on the news to dissect this is a foreign policy analyst, Bolu Michael Biyi, who joins from London, the United Kingdom. Good evening from here. Glad to have you join me.
Good evening. Good to be here.
All right. Now, how significant is international support expressed for Ukraine's territorial integrity at the recent summit, considering Russia's absence and, of course, its stance on negotiations?
Well, personally, I don't think there's a need for the summit if Russia, the main aggressor, and other, key stakeholders like the UAE, Saudi Arabia, are not, taking a major role in such summit. It seems like a head count of supporters for Ukraine. And I wouldn't consider it a success if it's just a simple majority, because 160 countries were invited and just 90 attended, and some with, junior diplomats, and even the supporter, President Joe Biden, was not present. So it just seems like a head count. If it's just to know the number of people, countries supporting Ukraine, just to have that global commitment, then maybe it has achieved its purpose. But when it comes to this, peaceful resolution, finding solutions to the conflict, I don't think it adds any major value.
Now, following your line of thought, what are the implications of countries like India, Saudi Arabia, and of course UAE you mentioned, not endorsing the summit's joint communique? I mean, how does this impact the diplomatic efforts towards resolving the conflict?
Well, these countries not endorsing their communique is just, there's an unequivocal support stance in support of Russia. They value their diplomatic relationship with Russia than Ukraine or any other country or multilateral organization that may be involved. I think it sends a strong message in that regard, and it may be for various reasons. It could be for political reasons, it could be for economic reasons, or even punitive reasons, because endorsing such communique could attract maybe economic sanctions from Russia. I think it's a clear message to the international community where these countries lie, but we can't really have progress of such substantial, result if these countries are not sitting at the table.
Now, the summit emphasized the commitment to sovereignty, independence, and of course, territorial integrity of states, including Ukraine. How might this declaration influence international law and also norms regarding conflict resolution?
Well, territorial integrity and sovereignty is a major principle of international. I think such affirmations kind of strengthens those international law norms or principles, and most importantly, deters countries that may want to, be aggressive in future or play the Russian card. That such a kind of venture, if they ever want to think about it, is a wild goose chase in the sense that they will not get international support. So I think it strengthens international law principles and deters countries from being aggressive in future.
Talking about Russia now, how does the absence of Russia at the summit, affect the feasibility and also legitimacy of future peace talks? What strategies could be employed to effectively now bring Russia into negotiation process?
Yeah, when you looking at Russia's posture right now, it seems they're not ready for any kind of talks or negotiation at all, and that looking at it right now, how things look as of today, it seems like the future is bleak, but there are some things that could be done, to kind of pacify Russia and encourage them to actually take a seat at the table and actually negotiate. And that's the use of, mediators. There are some countries that have good relationship with Ukraine and other countries, as well as Russia. The countries that have the ears of Russia and vice versa. So the use of intermediaries or mediators could, persuade Russia to sit at the table, and maybe, reducing the sanctions, reintegrating Russia back into the international community, I think would encourage Russia to want to sit at the table and know that, okay, they're serious about having this conversation. So that could pacify, Russia, and we may, anticipate, a peaceful resolution in future.
Thank you so much. That's a fine place to wrap up. Bolu Michael B., foreign policy analyst, who joined us live from London, United Kingdom. Thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure. Thank you.
EU member countries gave final approval to a key biodiversity measure, a bloc-wide nature restoration law, after Australia's climate minister defied her chancellor to back it. The law aims to put measures in place to restore at least 20% of the EU's land and sea areas by 2030 and all ecosystems in need of restoration by 2050. It sets specific legally binding targets and obligations for nature restoration in each of the listed ecosystems from terrestrial to marine, freshwater and urban ecosystems. The regulation aims to mitigate climate change and the effects of natural disaster. It will help the EU to fulfill its international environmental commitment and to restore European nature.
Zweitens ist es ein klares Signal, dass der Schutz von Umwelt und Natur wichtig ist für unsere Zukunft, für unser aller Existenz, für die Landwirtschaft, für die Forstwirtschaft und dass es deshalb auch ein Zeichen für besseren Schutz unserer Bevölkerung ist, zum Beispiel bei Hochwassergefahren. Wir brauchen Flussrenaturierung, wir brauchen Auenrenaturierung, uns vor stärkeren Hochwässern besser zu schützen.
Ellos el más importante porque es una ley que apuesta por el diálogo para poder conseguir una restauración de los ecosistemas, dando una oportunidad a que el conjunto de actividades económicas que dependen directamente del buen estado de conservación de la naturaleza puedan seguir desarrollándose con un compromiso por parte de los gobiernos, de los estados, que necesita contar con todos los sectores y en particular, obviamente, por quienes se ven más afectados por la pérdida de la calidad del entorno, como son los agricultores.
And talking politics in the region, Brexiteer Nego Farage says that his hard right reform UK party intends to use Britain's July 4 general election to ultimately supplant the ruling Conservatives as Britain's main opposition party. 60-year-old Farage acknowledged that his anti-immigration upstart would not win the July 4 vote, but said it would propel them towards the next election, likely to be held in 5 years' time. Most polls have reform trailing the Conservatives, but a YouGov survey last week put the fringe outfit ahead of Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's party for the first time. The UK's winner-takes-all voting system favours the bigger parties, but Reform's current polling system suggests it will damage the Tories by splitting the right-wing vote.
So this is not something with which we're going to govern the country. That's not possible in this election. Although this election is, for our party and for me, the first important step on the road to 2029. Our aim and our ambition is to establish a bridgehead in Parliament and to become a real opposition to a Labour government. I've said from the start, this should be the immigration election. I have no doubt about that. I think the population explosion, the impact that it's had on people's lives, is the dominant issue. And we believe that an overall freeze on net migration numbers is what we need for a few years to help us at least try to catch up.
You're watching Beyond the Continent. Let's take a short break. Stay with us. Thank you for staying tuned. In North America, the governor of the U.S. state of Maryland issued a mass pardon of drug offenses on Monday in a far-reaching move, forgiving 175,000 low-level marijuana convictions across multiple decades. Democrats Wes Moore said his act was aimed at addressing social and economic injustice. He said this is disproportionately impacting tens of thousands of black people. Moore, the Eastern State's first black governor, said he intends to right the decades of harm wrought by drug policy that had disproportionately targeted African Americans, depriving them of access to housing, education, and employment. Nearly half of all state drug arrests during the early 2000s were for cannabis, with the black Marylanders 3 times more likely to be detained over cannabis-related charges than white residents.
This morning, with deep pride and soberness, I will pardon over 175,000 convictions. I will grant pardons to Marylanders who have been convicted for misdemeanor possession of cannabis. And second, I will grant full pardons to Marylanders who have been convicted of certain misdemeanor possession crimes of drug paraphernalia. So we aren't nibbling around the edges. We are taking actions that are intentional, that are sweeping, and unapologetic. Policymaking is powerful. And if you look at the past, you see how policies have been intentionally deployed to hold back entire communities. We're talking about tools that have led to the mass incarceration of black men and boys.
In South America, hundreds of adjutants visit El Tesado daily, a prominent jewelry buying and selling house in downtown Buenos Aires, to sell their jewelry. People who previously had items they had not considered selling are now deciding to sell them because they might not be able to make ends meet and need to cover unexpected expenses. This was exposed by one of the 4 appraisers at the jewelry store. Emptying the mattress, they turned to the jewelry box in the midst of a strong economic recession, plummeting consumption, thousands of layoffs and rate increases in essential services.
Creo que es una cuestión de lo que está pasando hoy en el país. Personas que quizás antes tenían piezas que no tenían en consideración venderlas y hoy en día deciden venderlas porque quizás no llegan a fin de mes o tienen que solventar ciertos gastos que quizás no lo tenían previsto. Nosotros acá las tasaciones son alrededor de 300 personas vienen por día. Nosotros somos 4 tasadores, trabajamos de 9 de la mañana hasta las 20 horas y alrededor de 300 personas llegan por día. Vender oro siempre se vendió oro. Quizás lo que cambió, lo que siempre digo, el fin por el cual se vende. Quizás antes era para refaccionar una casa, comprar un auto, una fiesta, y hoy el fin es, no llego a fin de mes, tengo que pagar algo de la obra social que no me cubre, los servicios me han aumentado, no puedo pagar esto, me quedé sin trabajo. O sea, lamentablemente, casi la mayoría lo vende por obligación.
At least 6 people were killed and 30 others remained missing after heavy rains triggered a landslide in the tourist region of southern Ecuador. The emergency occurred in the municipality of Bano de Agua Center, a picture square area in the province near the base of an active volcano. Several seaside resorts were closed, along with the main road into the area. Torrential rains began on Saturday night and carried into Sunday, hampering rescue efforts. According to the president's office, heavy rains have also caused damage in other regions, with a total of 48 emergencies recorded nationwide. In Asia, at least 8 people were killed in India on Monday when a goods train driver missed a signal and slammed into an express passenger train from behind. 3 passengers' carriages were derailed and flipped on their side, while one carriage was thrust into the air, precariously balanced on another. The incident in West Bengal state is the latest to hit India's creaking rail network, which carries millions of passengers each day, and the most recent reported failure of drivers missing basic signals. Around 52 people were injured and taken to the hospital. Some of the survivors of the collided carriages narrate their experiences.
मैं यहाँ देखने के लिए नहीं, रेस्क्यू का जो काम चल रहा है वो किस तरीके से चल रहा है उसको मॉनिटर करने के लिए आया हूँ और आप सब देख रहे हैं एनडीआरएफ, एसडीआरएफ और यहाँ के प्रशासन और डॉक्टर की पूरी टीम अपनी जो है ईमानदारी के साथ अपनी रेस्क्यू काम में लगी हुई है। मौसम खराब है, उसके बावजूद भी लोग जो है अपने काम में जुटे हुए हैं और ये हमारी प्राथमिकता है कि इस समय सब लोग मिल करके हम लोग लोगों को बचाएं और वही हम सब लोग मिलके कर रहे हैं।
अंदर से हम लोग नहीं लगा कि बचेंगे।
धक्का लगा था जोर से?
हाँ।
कितने बजे ये हुआ था?
8:30 बजे।
आपके पास कोई सामान था और लोग?
हाँ, मोबाइल था, मोबाइल नहीं मिला।
यहाँ पे एक कैंप सेटअप किया है फॉर प्राइमरी ट्रीटमेंट और एम्बुलेंस।
The German Chamber of Commerce in China says tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles will not increase European automaker competitiveness. The head of the German Chamber of Commerce, Maximilian Botek, said at a presentation that they would rather advocate for investing in the competitiveness of the European Union rather than trying to protect the auto industry. German Economy Minister Robert Habeck will visit China this week for talks on economic ties between the two countries, with a spokesperson noting the minister will not be able to avoid addressing the issue of EU tariffs.
Quite clear statements that tariffs, as suggested now by the EU, will not increase the competitiveness of the automotive industry. And therefore, we rather advocate for investing into the competitiveness of the European Union rather on trying to protect the auto industry. And I mean, you cannot protect the automotive industry only in the European Union if they are all over the world in all global markets. So this will not, having implemented those tariffs now, I mean, what is the goal of it? If you implement those to protect the industry, but the industry said we do not want this protection because we are dependent on the openness of our markets, but also of our guest markets, such as China, it would be a good idea also for China now to come.
And now to a bit of sports. A section of seating from the stadium in war-torn Kharkiv went on show in Munich on Monday as Ukraine prepared to take the field for their opening game of Euro 2024. Andriy Shevchenko, the head of the Ukrainian Football Association and the country's all-time top scorer, was on hand to unveil the temporary exhibition. Built as a training location for Euro 2012, which was hosted by Ukraine and Poland, the ground was severely damaged by Russian bombardment in May 2022. The rigged stand is intended to draw attention to the destruction of sports facilities in Ukraine since Russia's invasion in February 2022.
Today, we're going to start our games. It's one team on the field, but million soldiers who stay and defend Ukraine. We are all together. We play today for the country, we play today for the people who defend our lives and our country today. And participation of Ukrainian team Euro today, it's very important message for rest of the world that we continue to live and we're gonna fight, but not only fight, we're gonna do our normal life. We try to be part of European society and the world society who share the same values of the freedom and democracy with us.
And that's all on Beyond the Continent. Send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen and follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can watch us live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Adebola Adeduba. It's bye for now.